Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, The Cloud Engineering. And as part of this live training series, we'll be talking about database services in AWS. So if I talk about the previous classes, we started with introduction to cloud computing. We talked about introduction to AWS. We talked about how to create IAM roles, IAM users, IAM groups. We also talked about S3 buckets, how you can upload some file over there. And after that we talked about compute services. That means the remote server EC2 or the serverless approach of executing your code, that is lambda function. So this was a quick recap of what we have demonstrated till now. So before we start with today's class, I will quickly check in the YouTube chat. Like if we have any doubt from the previous classes, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will be starting with today's class shortly. Okay, let me quickly conduct a poll. Just give me a moment. I am starting the poll, and in the meantime, other people are joining. Okay, friends, I would request everyone to post your question on the YouTube chat. I would be happy to answer that. So, there is a question. Let me quickly read that question. So the question is from Lokesh, and he's asking like what kind of certification we can go for after this training. So friends, as we discussed in the demo class as well, that this 1 week of live training may not be sufficient because this will give you the idea about the services on very high level. If you would like to explore these topics and along with many more topics, then in that case you can go through my old videos because I conducted a 6 week training program in June, and those videos are already available in my channel. You can always go to my channel, go to playlist, and there you can find the entire playlist of around 30 plus videos. You can watch it, and not only watching, you can do some hands-on practice on your trial account. And after that, you should be good to go with either you can go with the cloud practitioner or data engineer. These two type of certification you can go with, and definitely any certification would need hands-on practice. Theoretical knowledge will not be sufficient. So I would recommend that you try doing the things practically on your account along with going through the videos. Okay, Lokesh is asking like, is it this free? So no, Lokesh, this certification are absolutely not free because these are provided by AWS itself. So there will be charges for that, something around 10,000, or if you are going with a higher certification, that can be sometime even 15 or 20,000. So these are the charges, and sometime they launch some offers, they launch some campaign where you can get some 50% of discount, but ultimately, the answer to your question is it's not free of cost available. Okay, so friends, I think I have answered the question from the chat. If there is no question, no further question on the chat, that means we are good and we should start with today's class. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen, and I have already logged in into my AWS trial account. And today we will be talking about three main services. One is Athena service, second one is Redshift, and third one is DynamoDB. You must have gone through my, you can say, YouTube video link, right? I mean, even that thumbnail is showing three topics: Athena, Redshift, and DynamoDB. So we'll be talking about these three services. Okay, so the very first service is Athena. So I will be searching for Athena. I will tell you what Athena is all about. So Athena is a database, and the best part is that you don't need to create the table, you don't need to insert the data. These things are not required. Athena is capable of analyzing your data directly from the text file. Suppose you have a CSV file and you have copied that file into S3 bucket. So Athena is capable of analyzing that CSV file directly. You don't have to declare like what is the table name, what are the column name, what are their data type. You don't have to worry about anything. So that would be quite easy, because suppose from some server we are getting some log file, or from some other sources we are getting something, some data, credit card history or any server logs or anything, any survey details, and you want to perform some analytics on top of that. In that case, Athena would be quite convenient, and very less development efforts would be needed for that. Okay, so I'm coming down and you can see that launch query editor. So once you launch your query, you can see here that there is a database sales underscore db which was created by me. And if you see tables, there is no table. You can see that there is no table and there are no views. So as of now, there is nothing, and we will start from very scratch so that you understand the things from very beginning. Okay, so first of all, as I explained you that we would need some CSV file into S3 bucket. On top of that, we will be running our Athena queries. So let me open S3 bucket. If you remember, when we created our bucket, I copied one CSV file over there. I will show you. And now we will play around with that file. So I will open S3 file, S3 feature. Okay, and my first bucket 007, this is the bucket which we created few days back, and sample underscore emp underscore data dot csv is the file which we uploaded into this bucket. Now in order to work on this file, either we can do work directly, but the best practice is let's create a folder. Why I'm asking for creating a folder is because sometime you are getting the incremental files every day. Suppose you have 100 employee detail in the morning. In the evening, small file will come that would contain detail about 20 more employees. Next day, again some file will come that has 30 more employees detail. My point is you may have multiple similar files, and on top of that you want to create a single table, because all those files are ultimately representing the same table structure or same type of data. Okay, so what I will do is I will create a folder, and let's create a folder with name employee. Okay, I will create this folder. Now this file sample underscore emp underscore data dot csv, I will move into employee folder. So there is no drag and drop. It's not your Windows file system. Rather, we have to select this file like this, click on action and click on move, because our purpose is to move the file, not copy. Okay. So move the file. Now under which bucket you want to move. So my first bucket 007, and inside that there is a employee. I will choose the destination and I will click on move. It's quite simple. So your file will be moved from your bucket inside your employee folder. That's very simple activity. And I explained you why I did that, because we may have multiple similar files and I would like to keep all those files inside my employee folder so that my Athena can work on the folder level. Okay, so I will close this and I will quickly check. So we have employee folder, and inside employee folder I can see the input data. Okay, that's good. Now I was telling you that you don't have to create the table manually, you don't have to worry about inserting the data and all that stuff, right? So to make it easy, we have a service in AWS and the service name is crawler. Although I did not mention the name on the thumbnail, but that is a related service with Athena. So what I will do is I will duplicate this. Okay, and we'll talk about crawler. So you search here crawler and you will find the crawler. You may be thinking why the name is crawler, because it actually crawls just like any insect is crawling, right? Similarly, this will be crawling through your folder. crawling through your multiple files. And by crawling through multiple files, or in simple words, I would say by scanning all your input files, column should be there in your table, depending upon the header of the file. And depending upon the type of data, it will also find out like what should be the appropriate data type of that particular column. So ultimately, as a user, I don't have to worry about table, column name, their data type. That's not required. This crawler is smart enough to scan each and every file, each and every directory, and come up with the automatically created table for us. Okay, so we will create our first crawler. There is no crawler available as of now. You can give some meaningful name. I would say my first crawler. Okay, you can give some description, although it's optional, but if you want to provide, you can say that uh, for scanning S3 files and creating the tables accordingly. Okay, I am just giving a description. Tags are always optional, as you are aware about. We'll click on next. Now, is your data already mapped to a glue table? It is asking that whatever data you copied into S3, that emp data.csv file, right? Is that linked with some table? No, that's not linked because we haven't created any table till now. So by default, this no, not yet will be selected and you can keep that as it is. Okay. The next is data source. You are expecting that this crawler will scan some file, scan some folder, but what should be the data source? So there are variety of data source, but as of now, to learn this thing, we will go with S3. So you can click on add a data source and you can choose from the drop down. So you can scan a S3 file, JDBC connection, DynamoDB, Delta Lake, Iceberg, Goody, and there are many more. We will go with S3 because our data is available in S3 at this point of time. And you have to choose the S3 path. That folder, right? Employee folder I created. So I will click on browse S3 and which bucket contains the data? The last one, my first bucket. And which folder? Employee. So that I will select and click on choose. So basically I am telling the crawler that this is a folder inside this bucket which contains my data. Okay, after that there are few more options like crawl all subfolders or crawl only new subfolders, crawl based on events. There are many options. You can go with the first one, crawl all subfolders, because in case you have multiple subfolder or multiple files, it should be able to scan everything. Okay, I will click on add an S3 data source. That is very easy. Moving to the next option, and you can see that it is, as we explained in our previous classes, everything you do in AWS is completely controlled by AWS service, sorry, AWS permissions, right? So what type of permission you will give to the role, just like to that server EC2 instance, we associated with one IAM role. Similarly, this crawler will be associated with one IAM role, and whatever permission are granted to that IAM role, this crawler will behave accordingly. That means our IAM role should have access, at least read-only access to S3. Otherwise, it won't be able to read data from S3 and ultimately it won't be able to read the data. Okay. So in my case, I have already created one role. So I'm selecting that like this one, okay. Otherwise, in your case, because you don't have any role available, you can click on create new IAM role and that should help you to create your crawler. Okay, that's all. Clicking on next, it's asking like it will scan your everything, your files and everything. After that, it will create some table. So under which database it should create the table? In my case, in the drop down, I am getting sales DB, but in your case it will be blank. In that case, you can create new database. You can do that. So I will create new database so that at least you are aware how to do that. So I will provide the database name. I would say my first DB. You can provide any meaningful description and click on create database. It's quite easy. Okay, so what I will do is in my crawler setting, in my crawler I will select, let me refresh this, click on the refresh button so that your newly created db is appearing here. You can see that my first db is coming. Table name prefix, although it will automatically pick the name from your folder because you have the folder name as employee, so it will create a table with same name employee. But if you think that every table should start with something, suppose your project name is something and you want that everything should start with that. Okay, so suppose my project name is Apollo, for example. Okay, Apollo, Apollo underscore. Okay, what I want is my all the tables should start with Apollo underscore and then whatever is the folder name. So in this, in our case, it should create a table like Apollo underscore employee, but that's completely optional. If you don't want to provide any prefix, it's completely, you can skip that. Okay, and the next is crawler schedule. If you know that every morning and evening some new files are coming in your s3 file, someone is pulling uploading some file, you can schedule your crawler so that as soon as your file is copied, the crawler will run, it will scan the new files and ultimately your table will be updated. But that can be costly. So for learning purpose, let's not do that. I don't want to run my crawler ultimately every day, morning and evening. That's not my requirement. So I am keeping it as on demand. That means as and when I need it, if I need to run 3 times today, I can do that. And if I don't want to run for next 1 month, that's absolutely fine, right? So I'm going with on demand crawler schedule. Click on next. It will display all the details, whatever we have selected. My crawler name, description, data source, my folder name, and IAM role, and database name, and prefix, and schedule. Everything is there. And finally, we'll click on create crawler. Okay, so once my crawler is ready, we have to run the crawler. As we selected for on demand running, that means until or unless you are not running it, it will not run. You have to manually run this as and when required. So since our crawler is ready, let's click on run crawler. Okay, so it is running. You can see here, it is showing you the date and time. It is UTC time and the current state is running. So running means it is behind the scene. It is scanning your data, scanning your file, and finally it should create a table for us. That's my expectation. Okay. So in the meantime, this is running. I will quickly check my chat for any doubt. So there is a doubt from Ruturaj. He's asking what is maximum table threshold. So I didn't get your question. Are you talking about the size of the table or the number of tables? How many tables we can create or what can be the highest size of the table? Can you elaborate your question, Ruturas? Okay, so let me check the crawler in the meantime. It is still running and it has been completed. That's great. And if you scroll towards the right, it will say one table change. That's great because it has successfully created one table for us. And if you want to check, on the left side, you will see database, right? And click on my first DB and you will see that table is there. And you can see the name. The name is Apollo underscore employee. That's great, right? Because for one team, if you want that all the tables should start with something, you can do that. So that your table name is not interfering with any other team. That's very good use case. So it has successfully created the table for us. Now coming to the question, how to run query on the table. So this part, right, crawler part is only for scanning your file and creating the table. It's not for query. For query, we have another service which we talked about, Athena. Athena is there. Athena is used for executing your query, and Athena and crawler are interlinked. That means whatever table you created through crawler, those will be visible here. Let me refresh this and you should be able to see the same table here also. So database my first DB, and under tables you can see that Apollo underscore employee. I did not create any table manually, right? I did not even tell like what should be the column name. I did not even tell about the data type, but ultimately, automatically, AWS has scanned my entire data. It has automatically figured out that, okay, employee should be the table name as per the folder name. And by scanning the data and scanning the header of the file, it has automatically figured out what should be the column names and what should be their corresponding data type perfectly. Okay, so you can see this employee id, name, age, gender, department id, and manager employee id. These are the columns there in my table. That's quite great. Let's try to execute some query. So I will start with very basic, that is select star from this one. Okay, Apollo employee, and we'll run this, and you can see that data is beautifully displayed like a table. The column is coming here: employee ID, name, age, gender, department ID, and manager employee ID. And similarly, the data is perfectly displayed. Okay. If you want to try some other, I can say, other feature of SQL, suppose you want to try joining, union, select query, or some inbuilt functions, you can do everything. Let's try something. Suppose I would say select count star MGREMP ID, manager employee ID, and count star from this one group by manager employee ID. What I'm trying to do is I want to find out under which manager how many employees are there. So I can do group by, and I can run this, and ultimately it will tell you. You can see that there are four employees, and their employee ID is displayed here: EMP 007, 003, 002, 001. And all four managers are having like two employees each. If you want to display the manager name also, you have to join by itself, because in our table, if you see here, in our table employee ID is there, employee name is there, manager employee ID is there, but manager name is not there. But manager is also ultimately an employee only, right? So if you can join this table with itself, you should be able to display the manager name as well. So I am leaving that part for your homework. You can try displaying the manager name and the number of employees under that particular manager. Okay. So this one is all about Athena. You can see that database, tables, views, everything is listed here. You can execute any type of query, and you can even save the query, and there are many more stuff. If you want to download this result, there is a download result option as well. Okay. So now coming to the doubts, Ruturaj is saying that in crawler setting there is option regarding it. Regarding maximum table threshold, let me check. I didn't notice. So I will go to my crawler, and I will select my crawler, click on edit, and let's see what type of options you're talking about. Name is there, description is there. Here is also it's not there. Threshold. I didn't see any threshold. Oh, this one. Okay. Let me read this out. I never used it, but there is no harm. Let's explore it. So this field sets the maximum number of tables the crawler is allowed to generate. In the event that number is surpassed, the crawler will fail with an error. If not set, the crawler will automatically generate the number of table depending upon the data schema. Okay, that's the additional check. Basically, I will tell you. Suppose your main directory contains 5 folders. That means we are expecting that crawler should create 5 tables, and that's okay. But suppose someone deliberately, or in order to add more cost to your account, suppose someone copied thousands of folder there, and you are not aware, and you are running your crawler. So behind the scene, your crawler is scanning like thousands of file, and ultimately it will be ending up creating thousands of table, which you don't want, which you are not expecting. So you can put some limit. You are expecting that, okay, there should not be more than 10 tables because I have 10 folders and it should create the table accordingly. You can put some limit. In case it will find more than that number, it will fail. So at least it will not add you any additional cost. That's the purpose of this particular option. So we never used it, but after looking at the description, it seems like it's very good feature. Okay, I hope I answered your question, Ruturaj. Another question we have is how to delete data from the table in Athena. That's very good question. If you remember, when I was talking about S3 classes, I was explaining that you can only copy the data into S3. You can read the data. There is no option to edit the data. There is no option to remove something from the file. You can remove the entire file, that's possible. But out of 10 lines in the file, if you think that you can remove 2 lines, that's not possible. Because S3 is not a file explorer. It's rather object storage. Object means your entire file is a single object. Either your entire file will be removed or it will not be removed. But there is no way to edit or to delete something specific from that file. That's not possible. And ultimately, because Athena is doing nothing, it's scanning S3 data only. So to answer your question, in Athena, you can do only analytics. That means you can only read the data from Athena tables. You cannot insert new data. That's not possible. You cannot delete existing rows. That's also you can't do. If you want, you can delete the entire table. That's possible. You can go to your here, like go to database and go to tables, right? You can select the table and delete this. That's possible. But that will be ultimately deleting the entire table. You cannot delete any specific row from the table. Okay. So friends, with this one, we are done with our first topic, that is Athena. And in case you are having any doubts till this point of time, you can ask me. Otherwise, we'll be moving to the next topic, that is Redshift. Okay, so it seems like there is no doubt. So in that case, what I will do is I will quickly delete this table because that is not in use. Okay. Along with that, I will delete the crawler also. Although until or unless I will not run, it will not be running. That is fine. But still, there is no harm. We'll go to crawler section and will be deleting my crawler. Action and then delete. Okay. So that's all for Athena and crawler stuff. I am opening the next service, and in case you still have any doubts, feel free to post on the YouTube chat. Okay, the next service is Redshift. Redshift is also a database. Today's class is completely about database. I will tell you the difference. So Athena, you notice that you can only read the data, you can only analyze the data. There is no option to insert the data or modify the data, right? But in some cases, suppose you have a web application and behind the web application you want to use a database, and suppose you are giving flexibility to update some detail from the user, just like you can update your I would say contact details, your address, your profile name, profile pic. You can update anything in your account, and anything you do, that's ultimately stored in a database, right? Now the challenge is, if you are going with Athena, you can't achieve that, because Athena does not allow you to edit the existing details. You can't do that, right? In such cases, wherever you need to insert new data, whenever you need to modify the existing data or even delete the existing data, Redshift is the correct database. Okay, so you can come down, and they have released a newer version, that is Redshift serverless free trial. This is very new service. That's why nowadays they are promoting it. That's why they are providing a free trial version of Redshift serverless. Prior to this, there was normal Redshift. That was not serverless. That was normal Redshift. And nowadays, they are they are not providing the free version. Okay. So I may not be able to show you the things practically, but what I can do is, let me go back to here. Okay, so you can see here. Just give me a moment. Let me check. It is only showing me serverless query and database monitoring. Mm, it's there. Okay. So I think they are planning to decommission the older version. That's why there is no option for the older version except the last menu. Yeah, you can see that. Okay. So as of now, in my current project, we are using this Redshift provisioned cluster. What's the difference between this and that? It's like the difference between EC2 instance and the Lambda function. In EC2 instance, you can choose the server type, you can choose the operating system, how much of RAM, how much of hard drive, everything is under your control, right? On the other side, Lambda, that is known as serverless, you do not have any control over the hardware. As per your requirement, it will be launching a server behind the scene, and as soon as your task is done, it will terminate the server. Same difference is there between provisioned cluster and the Redshift serverless. In provision means you will choose like what exactly you want. You will launch the server. And serverless means as and when it is running, it will be charging you accordingly, and you don't have to worry about managing the hardware. So if you want, you can click on create cluster. Okay, and you can give some meaningful name. I can give my first Redshift cluster. Okay, and you can see that choose the size of the cluster. I will choose or help me choose. So you can decide. If you will choose right, then you have to select from here, and you will notice that nothing is coming under free tier. There is no free tier nowadays. Earlier they were giving, I remember, in one of my batch, I have done this Redshift complete demo, because that time they were providing for free. Nowadays, since they are promoting the Redshift serverless, so they are not providing it free. And you can see the charges here, 4759.60 per month. It's quite high, right? And you can see that load sample data. When you are creating your first cluster, if you don't have any data and you still want to try something, you can choose this option, and they will create some table, employee, department, sales, this, that, lot of data, lot of tables, and you can play around with that. Okay, you have to set up your username. Maybe you can say Redshift admin user, and give some password and associated IAM role also. In case this Redshift server is doing something, for example, if some query is failing, you are expecting that Redshift should send some notification, send some email, send some SMS. That means it needs some permission. So you can associate some role with it. So this way you can create Redshift cluster, and it is just like any other RDBMS, like Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle. It's like that only. That means you have the full control. You can create the table, you can load the data, you can insert new data, update the existing data, or delete the existing data. Each and everything you can do with Redshift. Okay, so friends, with this one I am done with Redshift, although I could not show you everything practically, but it's more like that one. And as in when you get a chance to work on Redshift as part of your office project, then you will have the opportunity to explore in more detail. So theoretical idea you should have, so that as and when you get some opportunity, you can explore and done some practice on that. Okay, let me quickly conduct a small demo, sorry, small poll. So friends, I am conducting a quick poll in the chat. If you can just respond to that, so I will come to know if you have any doubt till now or not. Otherwise, we'll be moving to the third topic for today, that is DynamoDB. Okay, it seems like there is no doubt. So in that case, I would go ahead with the next technology, that is DynamoDB. Okay, so I will search for DynamoDB. So DynamoDB is also a database, but it's different from Athena and Redshift. So Athena and Redshift are more type of SQL DB because you are dealing with structured data. Because every row in your table or even in your CSV file in S3, they contains exactly same number of columns. Employee ID, first name, last name, department, and second row also having the similar details. Third row also having similar details. This type of data is known as structured data. But in real time scenario, suppose you are reading a news article. Do you think that's structured? No, that's completely unstructured because one line can have 10 words and second line can have only 4 words and third line can have 20 words. There is no predefined structure. That is unstructured data. So in order to deal with unstructured data, we need NoSQL database. NoSQL is not opposite of SQL. Don't think in that way. NoSQL stands for not only SQL. That means it is not only capable of dealing with structured data as well as it is capable of dealing with unstructured data. That means it can deal with both type of data, structured and unstructured. You may be thinking what type of unstructured data is there. So I will show you. You can click on tables and hopefully there should not be any table available. So we'll create our first table. You can see that there is no table available. So I will click on create table and you can give some name. So I will give employee. Okay. This has nothing to do with your S3 data. It is not pointing to something else. Whatever you insert here, it has the full control. You can insert, you can modify, you can even delete. Everything is there. So everything you will be doing here. It's not pulling data from anywhere else. Okay. So there's a partition key. Partition key is nothing but something unique, just like primary key. In employee, you can say that employee ID. That's a unique identifier for every row. And optionally, you can provide a sort key. For example, you have multiple departments. So you can provide a department ID here that will help you to search faster. Because out of millions of employee, if you are looking for one employee, you will provide the employee ID. But along with employee ID, if you can provide the department ID, the search would be quite limited. Because out of millions of rows, now your server has to scan less amount of data only for that particular department. It would be easy for the server, but it's again it's optional. If you don't want to provide the sort key, you can skip that. But yes, partition key is mandatory. You have to provide that. Okay. So that's all. And I will be clicking on create table. This way my table will be created. And if I have to insert some data, then I will be inserting it manually. Okay. I will show you. Let it create the table first. So it's taking some time and then we will insert some data. I will show you how to insert different number of columns in different rows. I was giving you the example, right? First row can have 10 columns and second row can have 4 columns and third row can have 30 columns. That looks very strange, right? That looks very illogical, but that's possible with DynamoDB because that supports your unstructured data as well. Okay, so table is being ready and let's wait for it. And once the table is ready, we will be inserting some data. So you can see that table is ready now. I will click on employee and will be inserting something here. So you can click on, I will show you, click on action and create item. Item is nothing but one row. So employee ID is a partition key, it's mandatory. Employee 001. Department ID, I would say department underscore one. And apart from these two details, you can add as many more details. You may be thinking the table has only these two column detail, right? No, this this NoSQL does not have that type of concept. You can add any detail at runtime as per your requirement. What you do is add new attribute and suppose of type string, I would say first name, f underscore name, and here I will give Neeraj. Okay, I will add one more attribute, last name, L underscore name, and here I will give Kumar. Okay, I will give one more like maybe skill set, skills, and I am giving AWS. Okay, so along with the primary key and sort key, I have provided three more details: first name, last name, and skills. That's quite easy, right? I will click on create item. Now the question is, for first employee, employee 001, I added first name, last name, and skills. Is it mandatory that I need to add for all employees? No, it's not mandatory. Only mandatory part is your primary key. Apart from that, you can choose or you can change the column at runtime as per your requirement. So what I will do is, I will again click on I will add one more item. Okay. Employee ID EMP002. Department is department underscore 2. And I will add suppose first name. Okay. Ruturaj. Now, do I need to add last name and skills, which I added for employee 001? No, it's not mandatory. Maybe I will add something else. I will add age. Okay, like this. I will add more fields. I would say string. I would say address, Mumbai. So you notice that age and address I'm adding for this employee, but I did not add the same detail for employee 001. That's absolutely fine. DynamoDB is capable of handling this type of data. So different rows can have different type of data, different number of columns. That's completely possible. I will click on create item. Okay. And if you want to scan your table, scan means select star from table. You want to see the complete data. So what you can do is scan and query. You can see that. And you can run. So I am scanning the table and it should display all the details. You can see here. Employee ID, employee 001, department ID, department 1, address. There is no address information for employee 001 because we did not add. That's absolutely fine. Age is also not there, that's completely okay. But first name, last name, and skills are there. On the other hand, if you go to employee 002, department information is there, address is there, age is there, and first name is there. Last name and skills are not there. That's also fine. So this way, multiple rows can have different number of columns, different type of columns, different values. And this is completely possible with NoSQL. DynamoDB is one of the NoSQL database. Okay, so friends, with this one I am done with DynamoDB as well. In case you want to explore Athena, Crawler, Redshift, or DynamoDB in much more detail, I can share you the link of my previous videos where you can explore these things in much more details. Okay, so in case you're having any doubt, you can ask me. Otherwise, I am done from my side. Okay, so finally, before we close, right, what I will do is I will delete this table. That's very good practice. As in when you are done with your practice, always delete your stuff. Okay, so what I will do is I will select the employee table, click on delete, and type confirm. Delete all CloudWatch alarm for employee. Create on demand backup. No, these are not required. Click on delete. Okay, so friends, with this one we are done with today's class. I will still monitor the chat. In case you are having any doubts, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can close today's class.